Hello, this is industry updates. So, the news about what's been happening in the past week in the industries that caught my eye and I would like to tell you about. So, we are going to start with this series of cover shots actually for the Document magazine. It's a really interesting magazine that I really like and I follow. So if you haven't been subscribed to it, I definitely recommend. They always do really cool creative shoots. So this is a whole series done by different photographers, and the one we're starting this was shot by Richard Bush. Mm, this particular shot, and each photographer also did more than one shot. One was used for the cover, and there were more used on the inside. So this particular one focuses on beauty and makeup. As you can see, it's a very tight shot and very creative makeup, sort of this clown type when you wash out the skin and make it so pale, and then you add very bright elements on top of it, which I think works really well with the red hair color of the model. And there's definitely the whole idea was built around this bright saturated colors, and it was treated that way as well in post-production. You can see the redness coming out in different areas around the ear, so that was definitely saturated later. But I like this really nice soft lighting. I like this not straightforward, not obvious, not typical crop. When you crop it through the forehead, it makes it a little less intentional, which I really like. It's more of a sort of happened like that kind of shot, and at the same time you can see the entire shape here, which makes a really nice curvy shape of the overall composition here. Okay, let's take a look at the next cover shot, photographed by Mario Sorrenti, definitely a big name in the industry, which is, I think, is quite interesting, this overall idea here. And I've seen the other shots from the story, and they all kind of built around this fuzzy elements, kind of moss elements on her face, which is really quite cool. And beauty shots are all about capturing your attention by something really unusual on the face, and usually it's some either interesting texture or bright color, and all the other elements are sort of just supporting that than one main idea, or just maybe juxtaposing to it. So notice the hair here is very, very loose and almost not organized in any special way, and not into any shape. Basically, just like it's just falling down as it naturally would. I love the casting here, the pale skin on the model, just light touch up on the lips, maybe just a bit of blush on the cheeks, and very, very soft light overall. So you can see that the light is sort of coming from the top, just highlighting her nose. This whole area is in the shadow, but because it's so soft, it's all almost looking flat, so you don't really see a defined shadow here. And the softness kind of translate the way that the model herself is very delicate and very sort of elf-like looking, and the small is also something coming from the nature. So I think the whole concept was executed very well. And let's take a look at the next cover, which is completely different. If the previous two were all about the beauty, one is more bold and graphic, the other one is very soft and maybe more natural, more from the nature. And this one is a full body shot, sort of reminds you of, this, or maybe at least reminds me of those photographic salons back in the 90s and maybe even earlier, where you could come and just pose, and you have this very typical backdrop, and the photographer would place everyone against the same backdrop that would have this bright color and would photograph them. That just resembles me a little bit of that, because of how clean it is, the floor and the backdrop, and this wide angle lens that it was shot with, so you can see a lot of the floor, and quite dynamic body position on this chair. And even though she's looking into the camera and sort of like waiting for the picture to be taken, it still doesn't seem too posed because of all the other elements and how it's arranged. She's quite relaxed in that chair, and the wide angle also helps. Quite subtle styling here, dark blue shirt against dark blue curtain, light denim shirts, shorts together with the blue shirt. Quite an interesting combination, sort of juxtaposing each other, so it's not over styled, very sort of understated. So very interesting shot. I find it very appealing, because I also in my photography I like clean things and very sort of thought through, and I think the palette here is also very thought through in terms of how limited the colors are, from the light brown to the dark brown to just different shades of blue. So I find it really quite appealing, and personally something that I would shoot myself, something like that. So this was done by Venetia Scott, female photographer that I don't really know about, but not much at least. So, but there's definitely the elements that would make me want to follow her work and see more of what she does. And another shot, another cover photographed by Willy Vanderperre. I'm familiar with this photographer's work. He's a fashion photographer. I think he's from Finland, and very quite daring shot, right? It's not so clean and organized like the other three, especially not like this one. It's a lot of movement in the shot. It's a long exposure, so my guess is maybe it was also done with zooming in or zooming out of the lens. That's why this effect of like this blur, this motion blur happened on the face, especially. You can see it clearly, but also something on the clothes, and I don't know what the styling was about, but there's definitely more than one moving element. So all these things were done, with the help of this long exposure. And the light is also quite interesting. It's highlighting these elements. It's highlighting partially the face, but then the bottom of the face and the hair is in the shadow. So it's actually a lot of thought behind this image, although it looks very sort of, very, I don't know, not so clean and organized like this one, right? It's very spontaneous, sort of, like just, lots of moving things, and, very dynamic and very loose, and yeah, but I think it's very, very thought through, actually, to achieve all this. So yeah, quite an interesting series. Every shot is very, very different, and I do encourage you to take a look more and look at the other images that were done for all these issues of the Document magazine. Another image that I wanted to talk about today was shot by Chris Coles for Vogue Greece April cover. What really caught my eye is the photographic treatment of the image. So you can see, of course, first of all, you look at as the color red, which was just toned, I'm assuming in post. So on top of, so basically you first turn the image to black and white and then you turn it red completely, so you don't have any color nuances. It's basically one tone over the entire image, one color toning over the entire image, one hue of red. But what else is happening here? So what is this contouring effect? What is this halo effect of, you know, the hair suddenly looking brighter than the face if you look at the tones, and then this halo contour around? So how was that created? And I'm sure some of you who done some maybe darkroom experimenting, printing, you are familiar with that. But some of you who haven't done so, uh, so much darkroom printing and experimenting with different techniques. So this particular technique is called solarization. So it involves exposing some parts of the picture to light, and so basically it's overexposing some areas, and the chemicals start reacting differently, so it will create this halo-like effect. So parts of the image will render as negative and parts will stay as positive. So, you know, on the borders you will see those contours, kind of thing. So the effect was first discovered by Lee Miller and also Man Ray. So they were, I think, a couple, or at least partners. So they were experimenting together, and Man Ray sort of coined that term of solarization. He photographed Lee Miller many times using this technique, and like developed the pictures using this technique. So you can see again this brighter hair and darker contour happening in this one, and the contour happening in around the face and the clothes. And another picture you can see, especially here in the hair where it's supposed to be dark, and then this is where it's supposed to be a shadow. It's actually quite bright, so it's like this negative effect that I was just talking about. So the negative combined with the positive here, for example in the face, creates this very graphic and surrealistic effect, which Man Ray became famous for. And this is a picture actually done by Lee Miller and photographing Lillian Harvey. So I also really like this portrait because of this, you know, placement of the elements that were solarized. So like her face, for example, looks totally like a normal positive picture, and then some elements were done in this negative way, and then this contours appearing, this halos in the shadow here, for example, and kind of fading on her hand is here as well. So yeah, even if you're not photographing film and you're not printing in your own darkroom, you can achieve that effect in Photoshop. So for example, you probably have seen this picture of mine through the glass and just turn it into black and white version, so you can see it more clearly how that can happen, how the effect can happen. So in Photoshop you can go and find this filter. It's in stylize, under stylize there's called solarize, and see, this is what's happening. So it took all the areas where there was light here in this picture and the light here, and inverted them in this interesting way. So it's sort of an inversion of it, so you can see there's a shadow here, and you can see it on the glass here as well. And sometimes it's cool and turns out really interesting looking, but sometimes this is not really what you wanted. So you can experiment with this technique on your own and customize it. So for example, what I did when I did it more custom, in a custom way, I applied it to the hair while keeping the skin the way it was, and I also played a little bit here in the shadow. So this to me makes a little bit more sense because I kept the graphic elements of the hand and the magnifying glass around the eye the way they were, but then sort of flattened and inverted the hair here and so it looks more like this effects from Man Ray and Lee Miller, rather than this generic filter applied. So to me this looks more artistic when you have more control over where it's being applied, and you can draw the viewer's attention with this carefully placed graphic elements. So I really encourage you to experiment with this technique. It's really fun. And if you would like to see my video tutorial of how I did exactly this picture, it's going to be available to all my Patreon subscribers. And if you haven't been subscribed yet, maybe this is the perfect time for you, because there are more tutorials there on and more techniques that I share there with my subscribers. Otherwise, please like and subscribe. Stay tuned for more of my videos, and thanks for watching.